just do one thing. One thing. You need to bear it all, bear it all, bear it all. You need to bear it all, bear it all, bear it all.
Hello, everyone. I'm Darrell,
And I'm Casterline.
and this is A Little for the World. Casterline, thank you so much for coming on. Before we get started, I just want to thank you so much for deciding to do this with me. Before we get into this, I do want to say you're someone very significant to my journey within the past few months, honestly. Um, yes. So before we get into that, I do want to ask you, in terms of like all of the change that's been going on in the world, how has being an artist been helpful or has been helping you, to deal with all of the change that's been going on in the world?
Well, thank you too, Darrell, for having me on here with you and just to have this conversation, because this is a conversation that is never ending. We should never let it die. We should always be checking in with each other as artists and human beings. So thank you for that. And well, that's an awesome question to start with, because that's been my whole life. During this quarantine, during this pandemic, it's been about how do I use my craft, the tools that I have to fuel myself and put something into the world, into the universe. And this is the time that I have felt just so overwhelmed and grateful more than ever before to be an artist. The community that we exist in is so supportive, and the work that we do supports you itself. It's always there for you. It never judges you. It's always open to whatever the universe wants to take you and give you. And I think that that's been very, very valuable for me to revisit. I think there's always many points in artists' lives where we realize, like, oh, yes, this is something that is so significant and so important. And oh, yeah, here's this other thing. But sometimes we forget just in the hustle and bustle of life. So I hate being that person sometimes, but I am that person that will say that this pandemic, this quarantine situation that has come into our lives could not have come at a better time for so many of us, myself included, because it reminded me to slow down, and it reminded me to look around and to be grateful for everything that I have and to be grateful to be the artist that I am. Theater is something that is so alive and important in our world and in my life, and it emotionally drives me. And to be able to reconnect with it and to almost be that child that discovered theater for the first time all over again has been incredibly rewarding. And I hope that others have had a similar experience or will be able to have some kind of enlightenment or awakening of some sort in that vein, as I have, as well as I know many other artists have as well.
Yes, that's so beautiful. I definitely agree with you in terms of it couldn't have happened at a better time. Um, it happened right on time for me. And, in the beginning, I did feel bad for admitting that or saying that. The truth is that we all have different experiences. And I won't lie to you, I was afraid. Going into everything, I knew what it was. Leaving my job, preparing myself to be in these four walls, I was afraid because I thought that I would um, lose myself or I wouldn't do so well or it would take me to dark places. But I literally just drowned myself in healing and creativity. And it just took me to so many beautiful places that now I'm actually having a hard time getting back out there than I did being stuck in here. And it just goes to show that with the right things close to your heart, you can do anything or you can make it through anything. And I learned that the small things are the big things. And things like what we're doing right now are the big things. You know, just sitting in your bedroom talking to someone through a camera is a big thing, depending on what you're talking about, depending on what you're doing when you're home alone, depending on what you feed your mind, you can feel very full and you can feel very alive. I also want to mention that anything that I ask you, I'm going to answer as well. So we're going to be exchanging rather than, you know, you just sharing your truth alone.
Oh man, and you know, there's something so valuable as well in just what you're saying about finding yourself alone in these four walls of whatever home you're in or space or whatever. It's like you are forced to confront your artwork face on, just one on one. It cannot escape you. You cannot escape it. And that's a piece of ourselves. It's almost like we are with ourselves, our artistic self, or at least that's what I've discovered, that being face on with my artwork is me being face on with myself, because your artwork becomes you. And it's really just you and a battle with yourself. And there's value in that, in being confronted by your own mind, your own darkness, your own fears, your own insecurities, and them telling you that there's still more to the world than that. That is not the end all be all. That is not your only truth. It is a truth and it shall be acknowledged. We should never dismiss fear and insecurity and any great weight of emotion at all. We need to acknowledge that it's there.
But how has all those changes in the world helped you with your art?
I think it forces you to want to do more, especially right now. I can get very emotional about these things, so I apologize in advance. But I think that even if you're the person that's inside doing your own thing, just really in solitude, you can't help but acknowledge what is happening in the world right now. This pandemic has, yes, put us in a place where we have to be face on with our art, but with the world. The world is like, hey, remember all of these issues that we had? They're still happening. You can't forget it. You can't dismiss it. Just like those emotions and that fear and those insecurities, you can't dismiss it. You can't dismiss what's going on. It's happening around us every single day. And I think it just comes to show how much more we need community, how much more we need support from each other as artists. As I was speaking to you in a different situation before about how we constantly love to separate ourselves, right? As artists, we love to say, well, I'm a visual artist, well, I'm a performing artist, well, I'm musical, I'm a writer, I'm whatever. And yet we don't even realize how much more powerful and impactful our work would be if we just supported each other and we all saw ourselves as a unit and used each other to each other's advantage to uplift each other rather than to make it seem like this is how different we are. But then in that vein, we consider what's happening in the world with, for example, the Black Lives Matter movement. We are forced to revisit these issues right now. It's not that these issues didn't exist before. We just are face on with it because we have nothing better to do right now but then to acknowledge what is happening around us. It's important to be introspective, but also retrospective. We have to be able to take a look around at the world and say, what's going on here? We love being enlightened and spiritual and having some kind of greater awakening within ourselves. But what value does that have if you are not connected to what is happening in the world? I think that that's what is happening in the world is doing to me and my work. It makes it feel like there's something bigger than us. There is a greater fight to fight always. There is something bigger to support, something that needs to be said louder, and that should drive your work. And at least it's driving mine. I don't want to do work that doesn't have value. I don't want to do work that isn't going to fuel something in the world. Because I feel like the earth right now is knocking, our society is knocking and is like, hey, we need help. and we need each other, and that's how we're going to get by this. And yet, how much of that do we do? I say, revisiting what I said earlier, just how I said, I don't want to do work of no value. I even say that lightly because so much work has so much value to different degrees. You know, you take something that's incredibly lighthearted or something that is heavy, both are valuable, and it's important. Whoop, knocking over my books. And it's important that these things exist in our world. And yet, where do we find the balance? I actually had a great conversation with some friends a couple of weeks ago. And this was when those Black squares were popping up on social media. And I will probably get a lot of backlash for this, but I ended up not posting the Black square, not because I don't support the movement, but just because I was very much preoccupied with things that kept me disconnected from my phone for just a few days. I was internalizing a lot of things with people that I loved, and I'm really good at saying, hey, I'm going to disconnect from my phone right now. I'm going to disconnect from social media, and that's just it, you know? And we were having this conversation about how some people approved of those Black squares and they were supporting the movement, and others were saying like, well, this is just taking up my news feed, my like social media feed. And then the question came up of, well, so how are you going to be a good activist? How are we good activists from quarantine, from inside, back to being inside those four walls, when the earth is literally screaming for help? And I think that there's almost no right answer. I think that if you're constantly willing to learn, when you're constantly willing to put yourself outside of your comfort zone, you're constantly willing to go to great lengths that you maybe normally wouldn't go to, I think that that is good activism. And sometimes good activism is simply listening a little closer, being a little bit more empathetic, and just more understanding, being more present and available to help, and never, ever thinking that you are perfect or you are right, because we're constantly changing. And if you were perfect then what are we now? As we change every single second, as we move forward, as we go on, there is no such thing. So there's no right answer, because no one also learns the same. No one receives information the same way. And I don't even know if I'm answering the question properly, but I say this as a woman that I am a woman of color as well. I say this because I feel the backlash of the world very directly. And as an artist, as a performing artist, because I am an actress and I do a variety of things in the performing arts world, I constantly find myself with so many different people, different backgrounds, genders, race, creed, class, sex, whatever. I find myself with so many different people, and that makes my experience more beautiful and more valuable because I'm constantly learning something new. And never, ever, ever can I go into a job and think, I own this. You know, to some extent, you have to be confident in your work, right? But never, ever can I say that I got it all. I have all the answers to the universe. No, I don't. And I really think that we have to listen to the experiences of others for us to grow, for us to flourish. Otherwise, we're going to remain stagnant as a society, as a human race. We are never going to move forward. So, yes, listen to the earth, listen to society. It's screaming for help, and we have to listen. So, yes, that's how it's informing my work at all. And I hope it continues to inform my work that way, because I think that there's, like I said before, always something to learn, but also there are just some things in our world that haven't changed in a long time, and that we're going to continue to experience those things. And so we have to understand what that means. We have to understand what it means that this exists in our world, because some things aren't just going to change overnight. They haven't over the past hundreds of years, whatever issues they may be. But in acknowledging that they haven't changed, we have to also acknowledge where it's going. And the fact is that it won't change overnight. A lot of people don't think it'll change ever. So what does it mean to exist in a world like that? What does it mean to be a human living and existing with these issues surrounding them? And how can we give back to it? How can we do something greater than just ourselves and just standing there, than just listening? But it starts with listening, for sure. I've learned that.
The age that we currently are is the oldest we've ever been, and it's the most improvement that we've ever seen within ourselves. So sometimes we can forget that there's more, and it's important to remember that there's more and not to beat ourselves up about it. Just accept it and appreciate that that's life. You know, I had to learn that life is about learning. There's never a point where there's always points where you're more ready than you were before, but you're never completely ready. Like you said, you don't always have all the answers. And it's okay to accept that. You know, it's okay to walk into a room full of other people and not think that you're the best, and not say that to yourself to boost your confidence. You know, it's better to accept that you are your own person, you're different, and you can learn a lot from other people. Things that you are trying to develop with, they have. Things that they're trying to develop with, you have, and you can learn from each other. That's what artists do. So to answer the question as well, the way the world and all the changes in the world has impacted my creativity, I would say as well that it has helped me be more attentive. And now I know that what's going to help me change the world is my art. And my art being a form of love, I think that what's really going to change the world is love. And art is a form of that. We did talk about how love is a lifestyle to us. And, you know, sometimes it takes a while to understand that and to develop as someone who lives in love. And living in love means that even when there's hard times or you don't feel as positive, you still can turn to the smaller things in life and see that it's important and it matters. And it makes you excited and grateful to still be a part of the world. You know, now when I'm having a day that I don't feel as positive or I'm trying, I still write down how grateful I am for the things that I have. And I'm grateful to wake up, you know. And I remember when I was younger, a friend of my mom's, he would always tell me that it's important to say that I'm grateful for waking up in the morning. And as a kid, I always would be like, I'm gonna start doing that, but I would never do it. Like, I would find it so hard to remember to do that as soon as I woke up. So fast forward years later, I make sure to write it every day. And the artist way, which you know about, the morning pages, I usually started off with that way. And I have trees outside of my bedroom window that I always look at to see what they're doing. If they're flowing through the wind, if they're still, I always write about it. The way the sun is coming through my window, I always write about that, because those are important things. And I can't believe that a year ago, I didn't care about those things. I didn't see those things. And now I don't have a curtain in my window because I don't want one. You know, I want to see it. I want to see everything. And okay, sorry, I'm like getting emotional.
It's okay to be emotional. Let yourself feel it. And, you know, I agree with you. I actually only have sheer curtains. I literally only have sheer curtains because I want to see everything outside all the time. I feels like I'm someone who's very fueled by the sun. But you know what you're feeling right now is the way you communicate with the world. And that's what we do as artists, is that art is also a form of communication. The way that we can reach out to such a large community of people worldwide. That's incredible. And you know what? That connection that we can have to reach out to so many different people in so many different places, that is the incredible, incredible power of art. That doesn't exist in many forms, except in the various forms of art. And, you know, we can talk about media, but media is art. Media is art as well as writers and such. And, you know, I constantly saw those posts that were like, hey, don't forget that when you were in this quarantine and you were, you know, down in the dumps and you were trying to look for something to keep you busy and keep you entertained and keep you sane, what did you do? You turned to art. You turned to reading. You turned to listening to music. You turned to watching TV and watching movies and all of these things that it's like, this would not exist had artists not come together and found something in the world that they wanted to give back, that they wanted to communicate. And yes, that power of love. I feel that so much. I think that we are all so full of love and we have so much of it to give to the world, but we have to see it all first to understand what we're giving.
Yes, I agree 100%. Um, One thing that I do want to, a question that I just thought of in my head that I do want to answer with you together. I know there are people who are going to watch this and they're going to think, um, you mentioned that it's important for us to reach out to each other and connect as artists or as people. Um, and that's actually the most important thing in my opinion. Um, just as much as turning inward, you know, how do you tell someone, I know there's people watching this who are going to say, how do I eliminate fear of reaching out to people? You know, a lot of people feel like that's a hard thing to do. And for me, that's a hard thing to do. It's something that I'm still learning to do, is reach out to people and help them see that my intentions are truthful, good, honest, and I just want to provide something for all of us and for the world to feel and to acknowledge its importance, you know, living in love, and the importance of acknowledging the things that we try to move on from every day without really digging deep into the things that scare us. Um, what would you say to someone who wants to know, how do I eliminate fear of spreading my message or reaching out to other people?
And, you know, yet I feel like you're totally correct. Like, it's not easy. And I think that that's something that we all constantly need to work on a little more. Society does this weird thing to you where it makes you think you have to be a certain way and this is the way you're supposed to approach people, and now you start to act, you know, the way you think society wants you to act and the right way to communicate with people. But yet, like, it's really all about intention and being confident in your intentions. I think that once you're confident in your intentions, then you will have the answers as to how to communicate with people, how to approach people. Because if your intentions are clear, and not just clear to who you're relaying the information to, but clear to yourself, if you really know what you're talking about and you really know what you're standing for, it's going to show. You know, whether it's you doing that directly face on with someone or if it's portraying it through your artwork, it's going to show and it's going to be very, very clear. And fear is such a tricky thing, though. Fear is something that is so universal. Everyone knows what fear feels like. Everyone. Because our brains just like, we are we are geared and wired like animals that we are, as like this species of animals, and we have these fight or flight instincts and these freeze instincts, and it's like from the moment we're born, just the fact that your body knows to breathe, and the fact that that is so fulfilling and so alive, and that loss of breath, the moment of just the loss of breath, that alone instills fear in you, right? Because breathing is so freeing. It is what fills you with life. It's what fills you with voice, with laughter. There's so much with breath. I actually find breathing to be one of the most beautiful things in life. And I think that from the moment we're born, that natural thing of something just like breathing, losing that, just the idea that that is something that we could not be doing, instills fear in you. Like it's interesting how that psychologically just happens, because you don't even think about that. But why is it that the moment you can't breathe, you panic? You know, even as a baby, like you gotta clear up a baby's nose because like they just panic. They don't understand what it means to not be breathing. And I think that that's the truth of our world in general. Like, we don't understand what it means to be experiencing half of the things that we're experiencing. We will never, ever move forward until we begin to see this millionaire and this homeless individual as the same, as equals.
Exactly. Exactly. And I do want to talk to you about something that we've both experienced, something that has definitely, definitely helped with me turning N-word during this time, and especially from the beginning of quarantine. And like we said, you know, for us specifically, it couldn't have happened at a better time. And it just so happened that right before everything started, right before me wrapping up at my job to come home to be quarantined, I bought this book the last day of being out. You know, so that's so wow. You know, like um, I was more prepared than I thought I was. I was very worried. I was getting very emotional. I was the last person to leave the store, and lock up. I was getting emotional. I didn't know how this was gonna work for me because my source of um, just feeling like keeping positive and being happy and being creative came from going outside, getting sun, you know, and escaping. But this was my chance to create around me what I love. My room didn't look like this at the beginning of quarantine. You know, I didn't have all these plants, literally. I decided to make it more me so that way I can be happy here. And throughout this time, I was able to allow myself to literally just throw myself into the walls. Like, who am I? What do I love? What's gonna make me happy every day? Um, but it's so much more than that. It's all about turning inward, you know, and this book has changed my life, literally. And I just want to thank you for introducing me to it. It has changed my life. Now, I do want to talk with you about this book a little bit, The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. Before we get into it, I do just want to explain a little bit about Julia Cameron. Basically, Julia Cameron, she's an artist, and she has come a very long way throughout her journey as an artist. And what she does is she shares her journey with other people. Because yes, I do want to talk with you a little bit about this book. And I definitely encourage anyone out there to do this 12-week course because it's very beautiful. So
Yeah.
I want to start with you.
Yeah, totally. Oh my gosh. So like it's so funny because you know you're thanking me for introducing this book to you, but this book was introduced to me by my wonderful friend Sally, and she gifted me the book, right? Along with the workbook that I'm able to write with. To write into all of my morning pages and such. So I love the intimacy of this journey and what it means. And my friends that have done the artist way are actually like, I've realized that like I'm literally only friends with artists that have done the artist way. And I'm just like, you know, because there's just some kind of like mental connection that you create with people once you do the artist way, because it opens your mind to even having that connection, to the possibility of that connection, what that even means. This book is so, so important. It's a 12-week course, program, experience, what you will. And it is one of the most valuable things that I've ever done, because it starts from the very beginning at what you may see very clearly on the surface, and it slowly digs deeper and deeper to your core of existence, to who you are as an individual, to your place in the world as a human being, what it means to be an artist. This book is so effective that she even says in the book that doctors, lawyers, teachers, they have all used this book to change their life around, to change the way they communicate with people. It's back to that idea of art being a form of communication, you know, speaking, language. There is so much art just in human existence.
Artist dates. Artist dates have helped me turn inward as well and appreciate time with myself and know that that is actually like the best thing ever. Time to yourself, but also appreciating time with the people that you love. But when you take the time to yourself, you practice being you. So that way you can interact better with the people who you love and actually bring you to your conversations, bring you to interaction. Because the only thing that can make other people happy when you interact with them is you being you. No matter how much time goes on, everything still exists. You just have to tap into it. And yes, so artist dates are mandatory with your spiritual healing and your spiritual path to higher creativity. Once a week at least, an artist date is required while doing this course. And it's something that I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And we always have done these things. We just didn't really consider it that or really pay attention to the importance of being alone. Well, for me, for example, before starting this course. So one of my favorite things I love to do, I love to just take a blanket with me to the beach and just sit and just paint or just read a book or write or even just watch a movie. It's even things just sitting in my bedroom reading a book or watching a movie. Anything that you are doing alone that you love to do that's going to bring you closer to yourself is an artist date. Also, I think it's so beautiful that she incorporates quotes throughout the book. So beautiful. So beautiful. But yes, I do, if you can share about artist dates and how that has impacted you as an artist.
Yeah, I hear you on those quotes too, because I think that Julia did that intentionally because it goes back to that idea of like, we are not the only ones that ever have a certain perspective, and hence we are not the only ones that are always right. You know, that's like what it comes down to, and we have to understand that so that we understand each other more. And I think that she does a really great job at listening to what other perspectives are throughout her artist way journey as well. But I wanted to segue into the artist date by touching on what you had mentioned about, like, you know, tapping into that inner child and stuff and connecting with that. And the artist dates were actually something that were the most difficult for me. Not because I didn't know how to be alone, but it was almost like I didn't know what I needed. I didn't know what were the things, like, you know, and I get emotional about it too, because like I learned so much by just like being with myself and being able to say, like, you know, I think certain things in the world are important or right, and yet I'm disregarding everything that I truly need in the world because I am listening to what the world is making me think that I need, what the world is making me think should be my truth or my reality, or, you know, something that is defining of my existence. And I think that just reminded me so much more about me being a theatrical artist and being an actress, and something that we learned so much in acting school, that, or at least from some professors, that I have stuck with for so much of my life because I've wanted to be an actor and pursued acting since I was very young, is that idea of play. That idea that everything's a play. And that's like the beautiful thing about being in theater, because we produce plays. And that's exactly what we're doing. We are going to release everything that we think is right, and we're going to let ourselves be there existing offering something to the other human that you're sharing the stage with, or with no human at all, but just with that floor and that ceiling or that sky or that air. And that sense of play, that sense of what we discover in theater is exactly what it means to tap into that inner child of yours. And we neglect our inner child so much. And going on these artist dates allows you to say, like, I enjoy this and that's okay. I loathe that and that's okay. This fuels my soul and that's okay. And I deserve for it too. I deserve to take the time to listen to myself and to reevaluate the things that I find important. And if there are things that I find important that seem unimportant, let me question why and still think it's important. And I think that time with yourself is so important, so valuable. I was not good at self-care for the longest amount of time. And the artist dates really put into perspective how important it is for you to just take care of yourself. And sometimes taking care of yourself, my friend pointed out to me, it doesn't have to be, I'm going to do my hair and moisturize my body and do a mask. Like, it doesn't have to be that. But cooking yourself a great meal and letting yourself, listen to music and letting yourself sit there and maybe do nothing or maybe do everything, maybe just dance around, to just be with yourself. We had so much of the beginning of this conversation be, what are we offering to the world? But we have nothing to offer to the world if we do not offer to ourselves first. We have time to be all caught up in celebrity drama or friend drama, family issues, or, even getting caught in what is happening in our world, societal issues. We have the time to read those things, to scroll on our phones for hours on end. And yet we don't have 30 minutes to just listen to ourselves, to just sit there with yourself and be able to say, this is what I love. And this is who I am. How beautiful it is to listen to your own voice and to be able to say, I am enough and I am deserving. I don't know. I think that it was the toughest thing, and yet it's one of the most valuable parts. A lot of the artist way, when you really think about it, it's about listening. It's about listening to yourself, because you do your morning pages every morning. It's like, oh my God, what is happening with me right now? And the artist day is you sitting, with yourself for a second and doing what you want to do, but doing it with yourself. No one knows what's going on in your head but you. So we got to get to know that part, because you're the only one that can know that part.
I've never put it in perspective that way, in terms of only I can do that. So not doing that, it's like a waste.
It is a waste.
2020, I have magical moments that I remember, that I will always remember. Going to your show, it was such a great thing. I loved it. I loved it. And that night, you and I spending time together, exchanging, I was just like, wow, like, this is a magical moment that I will never forget. Like, just so many things that we talked about, it not only helped me get to know you, but it also helped me get to know myself, and how long I've come from January to that month where we were together that day. And it was just so beautiful. And then you told me about this book, and it's changed my life. Sorry. I'm just so grateful, very grateful. Yes. So now I do want to mention, like, the play that night. You did say that plays are like their life, their life. There were so many moments in the play that we all laughed at, but everything has a deeper meaning to it. And I think that's what's so beautiful about that. Sorry. I'm like trying to get through.
Now, baby, you're good.
Yes, everything has a deeper meaning. And I think that when we learn that, we can really just allow things to be what they are. And we can't change certain things, but we can allow ourselves to understand the deeper meaning of certain things. And the show was so beautiful. And just moments like Sonia throwing her coffee mug. You know what's so funny? I told myself, I imagined her doing that before she did it. And when she did it, I was like, oh my God, she actually threw the mug. But like just things like that, we all laughed at it, but it's such a deeper meaning to it, you know? Like just moments like that, it's like, yes, this is a show, this is a play. And the way she may have done that, it is funny. And we're okay, we can laugh at it, but there's a deeper meaning to it. And I think that's what's so beautiful about these things. So beautiful about these things. Um, yes, I love that. I definitely do love that. And also like Maja being with a younger guy, you know, the way they interacted, it was also funny. You know, we laughed at that, but there's a deeper meaning to it, and the validation that she seeks. It's so everything has a deeper meaning, is what I'm trying to say, and that's why I really enjoyed the play, and that's why I enjoy art. Yes, so since we're talking about plays, I think that right now would be a perfect time for us to do an exercise. Um,
Yes, totally. I do want to share one thought with you actually that's just been on my mind because you connected reflecting on this show that I was in back in March 2020, which was actually the show that I closed right before quarantine. So I just feel like the universe was looking out for me and was like, we're going to go into this quarantine on a high note for me because I ended the show closed March 8th. That next Monday, March 15th or something, everything was shut down. A week later, I literally went to do my quarantine groceries that Thursday after the show. So it was like incredible the way the universe works. But you brought up earlier a lot about like in the artist way, connecting to also like your childhood issues because this idea of like everything has a reason, everything has a deeper meaning. And sometimes, you may see, like you had said before, maybe there's someone in your life that's not making a choice that you would particularly make or that you would particularly perceive as rational or logical, but why? How did they get here? What in their mind is making them think like, yes, this is justifiable? And that in itself is justifiable to understand where that comes from, to understand why that what could be seen as irrationality is coming up to the surface. Why that burst of emotion, why that burst in action. And something like a play, something like comedy in general, or just art in general, is that, we laugh at it. We create comedy, we create these stories because life is absurd. And there's so many things that happen in life that literally you just have to laugh. You have to laugh because it's insane. It seems so, at least. It seems like, wow, the universe really throws curveballs at all of us all the time. And that's why we laugh at comedy. Why do we laugh at other people's pain? Because it's like, yeah, that's exactly the way I feel. You knew she was going to throw the mug because you know what? Maybe there's something in you that would have thrown it. Maybe there's something in a lot of other audience members that would have smashed that mug against the ground. And it was funny. But it was funny because we relate and we get it. And it's just like so insane that it's like, yes, like that's hilarious because it's true. Comedy is its most effective for whoever our performing artists are out there. You have to be honest.
I do want to do this exercise with you. So being that we're talking about plays, I thought that it would be such a like great thing for us to do, such a fun thing for us to do, and just have fun and enjoy it, and just be. just be. So I actually wrote a very, very short play for you and I last night.
Which I have not read yet. So this will be a very cold read, which I'm excited for because I love cold reading.
When the Little Thing Saves Two Worlds by Darrell Spearman.
It isn't funny.
I have to laugh.
Why? So they won't hurt your feelings?
No? What are you talking about?
Here.
Thanks. What are you talking about?
Why do you like playing with that so much?
This? I don't know. I like making them.
Are you gay?
Leave me alone.
It's okay if you are.
Oh, why were you crying before?
I'm a girl and I have no control. Emmanuel can do whatever he wants to me. Mama Catherine won't do nothing.
I wish I were born somewhere else.
There has to be more. There has to be somewhere better, safer.
Another world, right?
Another world.
You know, Christine told me that Auntie Brown moved to a better place. She floated with the river to get there. You want to go?
We'd get into big trouble, Kens.
No one will know we're there. Not Emmanuel or Mama Catherine. We'll be okay.
And how will we be able to get back without getting beaten?
We won't.
At sunrise?
At sunrise. Okay? 5:30 a.m.
Oh, this is us. When we get there, I want to be queen. That way I'm in charge, or I'll be a witch and hex Emmanuel. Maybe you can be a girl.
I don't care what I am. I just hope I can do what makes me happy. Let's get in.
What is that?
It's a monarch. Get it. Okay.
I
Liza,
love that.
Liza and Mackenzie chase after the monarch until they head back home.
Wow, that's beautiful, Darrell.
Thank you so much.
I love that so much.
Liza and Mackenzie are actually on their way to commit suicide in this river, which is connected to a waterfall. An aunt of theirs died that way, and they were told that she went to a better place. She floated through that river, you know? So basically, that was their way of ending the criticism, and that way Mackenzie could be creative without being told that he's a girl or that's for girls or that's gay. And if you guys notice, Liza hands Mackenzie something, a box, and it's basically like a bracelet making kit that he's not allowed to play with when the adults are around. So at a certain time, Liza would hand it to him when they're in the room so he could just play with it. And I actually got the idea when I was a kid. I was at an uncle's house with my cousin. She's a girl, his daughter, and she had a bracelet kit. And I wanted to play with it. And I remember him saying, like, what the fuck are you doing? You know, and just shutting me down. And I thought about it and I wanted to put it in there. But yes, so that is just to symbolize how small things like a monarch or even a bird or like a flower or just anything could really distract us from the pain that we're experiencing, or help us understand that maybe this pain is worth it and it will lead us to something greater if we let it, and if we learn to stop and pay attention to the small things. And right in that moment when they were going to get in and they were going to potentially end their lives, they see the monarch and they leave the water, they go to that, and then after they just go home. They just go home. And I guess that helped them they're children, so the way they would describe it wouldn't be, now we know that it's worth it, we should keep on. Maybe in adulthood, they'll think about it that way, and they'll really break it down that moment. But as children, they just saw a monarch and they went back home. They had a great time. It was a distraction for them. They're children. Versus us now, you and I, if we had a moment like that, we would be able to describe it as my reason for writing it. But yes, I really enjoyed doing that with you. It was a very good exercise, a very good thing to do.
Thank you for sharing that with me and like giving me the opportunity to read it and embody one of these characters, even just for a moment. I think this is actually a really important conversation to be had, because at at the point when we're young and we realize what like death is, it's almost like fear creeps into our minds because of everything that is beautiful about life. And yet there's a reason people commit suicide, because sometimes the weight of the world seems so much that escaping it is taking more off of your shoulders than not. And I wonder if these kids even fully understand what it means to go to this better place. Why do we call it a better place? Why can't we make this world the better place? All the dark things in life, drugs, whatever, we don't talk about it enough with children. We don't talk about it enough. We make it seem like the really crappy thing that they're experiencing or whatever just is life, and that's just it, and we don't need to talk about it, you'll figure it out. Or no, we need to talk about it, because it's all the human stuff, whether it's human made or universe offered or whatever it comes from. These are things that are inevitable for humans to experience. So we need to have the conversations with our children, with the younger generations. It's like, we need to do better. If our parents didn't have these conversations with us, and if people made us feel these things, we cannot continue the cycle. When do we break the cycle? Let's break the cycle. Have the conversations.
Exactly. I can't agree with you any more than that. That's another thing that I've been learning now. And there's another book that I've read while being in quarantine. It's called It Didn't Start With You. And
Oh, I heard about that.
it's so, Casterline, it's so good. Like, I literally mapped out patterns that I experienced being around different family members, and like things that connect, and what do I see in myself, just to identify the way that I live and the things that I do that I want to change. And I think that once we start to realize it didn't start with us, we all come from somewhere and we all come from other people. I do want to actually read something to you. This is a little bit off topic of what we're talking about, not necessarily in terms of listening and understanding people, and appreciating people, and telling people how amazing they are. So yes, I did actually write something for you, and it is titled Casterline. Like Jenny down below, you've seen the bird. Your way of living means love. Sculpting your own life by taking your own separate turn into the unfamiliar, you chose light. You inspire with a smile that lives to show that your artist child is still alive.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Wait, I want that poem. I want to hang it on my wall or something.
I'll type it up and then send it to you that way, so it's like.
Oh, thank you. I love that so much.
I don't know if you remember the Jenny down below sees the bird concept. It's in the artist way.
Yes.
Just it kind of, it ties into the play that we just did.
Mm-hmm.
All things. And Jenny went to work, and then her annoying boss was like, do you have time to do this? Normally she would be annoyed, but she said, of course, because she had that moment seeing the bird and the bird seeing her, and it was just such a beautiful connection. I will definitely send you this.
Thank you. You don't even know how much that means to me. And You're right. Our minds are very complex and they're always going in a million directions, but that's okay. It's okay. I think that when we love a little harder and listen a little closer, everything falls into place.
I agree 110%. Absolutely. Casterline, thank you so much for being a part of this. I'm just very happy and grateful that you could share your truth and you could bring you to this, because nothing is the same without someone who's been a part of something. You know, this project would not have been the same if you weren't a part of it. You're providing something that we all need. And the most beautiful thing about it is the message that we're spreading and that we're trying to share with everybody. Having these conversations, it also helps our healing processes. So even if you and I, guys, this is a conversation me and Castellan has even when we're just alone. And it's literally like the only difference is we're sharing it. That's it. So this helps my healing process as well. You know, so she's impacting you guys by being herself. She's impacted me and she's impacting me right now. You know what I mean? So just thank you for being yourself. Thank you for bringing who you are to this. Thank you for knowing the importance of doing so. Because when you do, it's like almost nothing can stand in your way to show up for yourself and for people for people. Yes. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Darrell. And, you know, for whoever listens to this, it's also to even take just a conversation that like this, that is just a couple hours long, and to release that sense of judgment. Because even this conversation that I feel like was very detailed, pretty thorough, it doesn't even skim the surface of who we are as people and the things we truly believe in. So if anybody who is watching has more questions or needs like more elaboration on certain things, like absolutely ask, because the only way we learn is by listening and conversing and sharing with each other. Because, you know, there's a lot of things that we could have gotten into a lot more detail with, and we aren't going to, because we'll be here for the next 5 years. But but yes, I think that there's no problem with saying I didn't understand this. I don't agree with this perspective. Please share more about what you're seeing that I possibly am not, or can I share a piece of my mind with you? So thank you for giving me the opportunity to share a bit about myself. I was actually having a rough-ish morning, and so I think that this conversation just really like reset me, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm back. So thank you for that. And I really hope that more people just sit down and have these conversations more often, even if it's not about these topics, just to speak and share with another human. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being you.
Thank you for listening, for being you. And moments like these really do, like you said, reset, and it reassures our sense of purpose. You know, sometimes we don't feel that. And sometimes it's like, okay, so what do I do? Like, you know, you just feel like sometimes you just don't feel it. And moments like these, even hearing yourself talk, it gives you fuel.
Totally.
I love it. And I'm grateful for it. And it means a lot to me. So again, thank you so much for being a part of this. And I am very happy for you and your journey and all of the growth that takes place every single day within you and in your life. And yes, so I am Darrell Spearman,
And I am Casterline Villar.
and this is A Little for the World. And this was A Little for the World.
Bear it all for me, get naked for the world to see. Write a song in company, so the stage be wild and free. Go ahead, baby, do it proud. Let your hair down, sing it loud. Never stop at the